Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here. I am State Senator Bob Mensch, and I'm from the 24th District. For those of you who don't know, Pottstown happened to be part of that district. And I have a honor this evening to introduce the governor of the state of Pennsylvania. Before I do, indulge me for 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I want to do a little bit of a walk in time. And as I was sitting there this evening, I think how symbolic it is that here we are at Sunnybrook Ballroom. I grew up across the hill in Pennsburg, Pennsylvania, not very far. Everybody that I knew had family that worked in Pottstown. My father worked at Firestone. Many people worked at Kiwi, Bethlehem Steel, Mrs. Smith's Pies. The governor ate a lot of those, right? Doler Jarvis and so forth. Pottstown was not only the economic engine for this immediate area, but you had economic tentacles into the Upper Perk area, into Upper Chester County, into Berks County. It was a very viable economy here. So I think there's a symbolism that we're here in Sunnybrook that used to, back in the 40s and the 30s, host some great big bands, and it was quite an establishment for a long time. In fact, if I can brag a little bit, I played here. My teacher, anybody here from Pottstown studied at Lamb's Music? You would know Les Weiss. Yep. Les played with Arlen Sailor's band, big band here at Sunnybrook, and he would call me sometimes to play fourth tenor when they needed somebody to play. So it was really a kick to play here and have that experience. In the old days, by the way, they used to have a wall with just autographs from all the big jazz greats. Then this building fell into disrepair, and they lost some of that. So here's where the symbolism comes in. This has risen again. It's almost like a phoenix. We've had good investment strategy here, and today we're lucky enough to have an owner like Jack Galati, who is making increasing investments in the property. I can remember about 11 years ago, maybe a little less than that.
Jack deserves it.
All right, okay. Jack, thanks for hosting, and the food was wonderful.
My pleasure, Bob.
Kudos to the chef. We played here for a fundraiser, and we played in the garage across the hall of the driveway when they were first trying to kick off raising money for this facility. And it was a 40s theme. Everybody showed up in World War II military dress, and they had Jeeps and trucks and everything else. It was quite an event. But what they did here with one property, one facility, in helping to resurrect some of the bones in Pottstown is now the challenge for those of us assembled here this evening to begin to collaborate to do it for the borough, do it for the region. It's an economy that can economically feed so many families and feed into so many other subsystems of the economic culture in this region. We really do need your help. We do need your support, and I know the governor's going to talk a lot more about that. I was talking with someone earlier this evening, and I reminded him that committees are made up of many and led by a few. So what we're here tonight hopefully looking for is some people are going to say, I'd like to join the group of leaders. Not just a joiner, I want to be a leader. Pottstown, since I've become the senator and covering this area, I've had the chance to visit a lot of businesses in this community. There are a lot of really good businesses already here. There's really good bones in Pottstown. But Pottstown had so many, we mentioned the businesses already, they were what I would call marquee businesses. Everybody saw them, everybody knew them. They were national, international brands. And today, we don't have quite the same presence economically. So it's easy to think that we don't have the same number of jobs, the same quality of jobs. Believe me, they're here. But there is still a great deal of opportunity to expand on the growth that is here, waiting for you here in Pottstown. So now it's my turn, my time, to tell you a little bit about the governor of Pennsylvania, who I've had a chance to work with. And if we, and I'm serious about this, Gov, if we didn't have our party registration cards, you'd think that we were the same team. because we do think very similarly on economic development, business, and so forth. And I really respect him for that. Governor Wolf grew up in a small central Pennsylvania town in York County. Still lives in the house he was brought home to from the hospital. Remarkable. He left York County to attend college at Dartmouth. He interrupted his studies to join the Peace Corps and served 2 years in a small village in India before returning to finish his undergraduate degree. Later earned graduate degrees from University of London and MIT. While finishing his PhD, Governor Wolf worked as a forklift operator. This I really like about you. I do. All right? Worked as a forklift operator and warehouse worker in family business, the Wolf Organization. I cured inner tubes at Firestone in the college pool. You and I can trade some stories. He was also the Wolf Organization is a distributor of lumber and other building products based in York, Pennsylvania. After graduating, his first full-time job was running a True Value hardware store in Manchester, Pennsylvania. Later, with his two cousins, Governor Wolf secured a loan to buy the family business. Over the course of 25 years, Governor Wolf and his cousins grew the Wolf Organization, eventually more than quintupling the business in size before selling the company in 2006. And then again in 2007, he took the job of Secretary of Revenue in Governor Ed Rendell's cabinet. In early 2009, he returned to the Wolf Organization. The company he had spent more than 2 decades building and growing was on the brink of bankruptcy. He immediately ended his gubernatorial campaign at that time, brought back the business, and got to work reinventing the company. Through innovation and smart investments, he was able to turn the company around, and he changed the Wolf Organization's business model, transforming it from a solely supplier of other business products into a company that sources its own American-made cabinets and competes directly with overseas manufacturers. January 20th of 2015, he was sworn in as Pennsylvania's 47th governor. Governor Wolf's focus as governor are jobs that pay, schools that teach, and governments that work. Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the Honorable Tom Wolf, Governor of Pennsylvania.
Can we have another round of applause for Senator Mensch? What a guy, huh? I'm really proud to be here, but I got to say, no one ever invited me to play in a band anywhere in the Pottstown area. So I apologize for that. But what a great community and what a great reason for us to come together. This is a place, I spent 2 years at the Hill School, coming from York County. And to me, Pottstown was a place that was rich in tradition and texture. And it deserves every connection between the Hill School and the Pottstown to make sure that we do everything we can do to make Pottstown all that it can be. So I am pleased that the school is doing what it didn't do when I was here and when Bart Harvey was here. We were an island, and we did not engage with the Pottstown community. And I think both the Hill School and Pottstown suffered as a result. Back then, Pottstown didn't need the Hill School. Hill School pretended it didn't need Pottstown. Neither one of those things, it turned out, was true. And I think right now, it's a good time to think what we ought to do to work together. The Hill School really cannot be an island anymore. So there are two things, and that's what I want to talk about here. I applaud the Hill for reaching out. I applaud Pottstown for reaching into the Hill. And in the hopes that those two institutions, the borough and the Hill School, can work together to actually make both much better than they would be without each other. I think Hobart's run is a great way to start, but I'm hoping that we can convince all of you to do more. When I was at the Hill, I studied English, and my teacher, I think, is dead now. Okay, I had nothing to do with it. I just want to point that out. Nothing to do with it. But one of the people we read in fifth form English was John Donne, right? No man is an island, by which he meant no man or woman is an island. And yet, when I was here at Hill, that's exactly what the Hill School was. It was an island. Hill sat here in splendid isolation from the vibrant community that surrounded it. And it was a vibrant community. Hill kids were limited in their ability to interact with their neighbors in Pottstown. I mean, we were actually confined to the campus for the most part. And Pottstown kids, well, they didn't seem to really want to have a whole lot to do with the Hill kids. You can't blame them. We didn't eat in Pottstown restaurants much. There was Dempsey's, but that was about it as far as we went. We didn't shop in Pottstown stores much. There was a bookstore that the Revelle family had down at the bottom of the campus, but that was about it. And we did not avail ourselves of any of the other things that might have made our Hill School experience richer, fuller, and more enjoyable. This we need to change. And Hill needs a lot more of Pottstown, and Pottstown needs a little more of Hill. So let's ask ourselves two questions. First, let me try to convince you what I think you already know, and that is that these two entities actually need each other. I want to talk about why I think that's to their mutual advantage. And then second, we need to at least start thinking about going beyond Hobart's Run, thinking about how do we make Hobart's Run successful, but what are we going to do about the need to come closer together? So let me start with the first of these and ask, why does it make sense for Hill and Pottstown to work together? And let me just give you 5 reasons. First, Hill needs a safe and attractive environment to induce parents and their children to want to make Hill a central part of their lives for a long period of time. That makes sense. Now we'll talk about the admissions department. What do you call it now? Not the admissions department. Still there. But they do a survey annually and try to find out why kids who don't come to Hill, who are accepted but don't come to Hill, why don't you come here? And a lot of times they say, well, you know, Pottstown doesn't compare to Deerfield or Lawrenceville. So we need to make sure that we're working together to make this environment one that's attractive and brings people to Hill. That's to Hill's advantage. That's its self-interest. Second, Hill students, the student experience would be actually made better and richer if we had a closer connection with Pottstown. I think we often confuse the situation by comparing ourselves to some of these prep schools that are in rural areas or small New England towns. Well, we're not. And that's not only not a disadvantage, that's an advantage. We're different. We distinguish ourselves in that way. Third, the Hill faculty could be helped by a vibrant community that made Hill more attractive to them. Fourth, Pottstown could benefit from bright Hill grads and faculty who choose to return here or while they're here, apply their talents and their brain power to the economic and social challenges and opportunities in Pottstown. And finally, Hill has just capital resources. It has the resources that could be used to the advantage of Pottstown. So let me just start with the first of these, the attractive environment. Again, the admissions department has surveyed students who apply to Hill or accepted but decide not to come to Hill, and Pottstown figures prominently in that decision. And it's not because Pottstown's doing anything wrong, it's because Hill and Pottstown aren't making a big enough deal of what they have here, which is much better than just about, as far as I can tell, any other environment that any other prep school offers to any applicant to those schools. Let's think about some of those. The quaint rural New England village like a Deerfield, that's not Pottstown. That's not a problem. That's an advantage. We don't have beautiful hills in a neat little Victorian town here, like Mercersburg. That's not a disadvantage. That's an advantage. That's a good thing. Or a set of stunning red brick buildings near a venerable Ivy League institution like Lawrenceville. That's not a bad thing that we don't have that here. It's a good thing that we're Pottstown. Because while we don't have those things, they don't have Pottstown. There is not one other elite prep school in the entire country that has Pottstown. No one. That's a real town. That's what we have here. No one else has that. With diverse and a really interesting texture. It has beautiful streets. It has stunning architecture. It's a place, as we said, that once made tires and shoe polish and Mrs. Smith's pies and steel. There's no other place in the country, in the world, that has a great school in the middle of a place like that. And it has a place that's in so many ways should serve as a magnet to anybody who really wants to enjoy a truly unique secondary education. Pottstown has all the ingredients to be that extraordinarily unique and ideal place to get a good education, a really good education. All this suggests that the Pottstown environment could be a remarkable resource for the Hill in trying to give its students the truly world-class education it does actually give its students. For one thing, the kinds of colleges that Hill graduates want to go to, well, they're not looking for splendid isolationists. Dartmouth, I don't know why I mentioned that, isn't looking for students whose life experience is confined to manicured campus, isolated campuses that are insulated from the real world. Second, a cosseted life on an educational island is not a great preparation for life in the real world, or the real economy, or a real family. Hell, it's not even a great way to learn how to live on a real island. I mean, that's a problem. Third, that cosseted life on any island is not appropriate. It's not an appropriate basis for a great education. Pottstown is a grand context for the formal education Hill provides. And it could serve as a key ingredient in the recipe that keeps Bright Hill graduates from having to work for equally bright Lawrenceville graduates. And that makes these Hill graduates, that's the kind of thing that makes these Hill graduates stand out in a crowded and competitive college admissions process. This is unique. What we have here at Hill is unique. We have great courses, but other prep schools have great courses. We have a beautiful campus. Other prep schools have a beautiful campus. We also have Pottstown. Now, for its part, Pottstown could benefit from a closer relationship with Hill. Good schools and good settings serve as irresistible magnets for alumni who might want to return to the place that has real meaning for them and where they might actually build a successful business, raise a family, create good jobs, pay taxes, and in other ways enrich the life of the Pottstown community. Alumni who want to return to Pottstown themselves serve as living testaments to the attractiveness of the place. Hill is itself an employer of bright staffers and faculty members who are overflowing with the kind of energy and ideas that drive all really successful communities. And all of these are possible, if Hill becomes more connected to its surroundings. Finally, Hill has the capital resources to help Pottstown be all that it can be. First, it has the physical capital, a beautiful campus with striking buildings to add to the beauty of the Pottstown community. It's on a hill, it has a wall around it, and instead of being isolated, if it were connected to the rest of Pottstown, it could serve as a stunning architectural showpiece for this community. Second, Hill has the intellectual capital to add to the quality of social life in Pottstown. And finally, Hill has the financial capital that could make, as in this project that we're doing now, $5 million, could make a difference in assuring the success of the private and public efforts in Pottstown. So these are some of the reasons why both Hill and Pottstown should connect more seamlessly. The question is, how should they do this? Well, I think that's something we're working on. That's something that we need to work on to figure out how the eds and meds actually in Pottstown could actually work with the borough to make everything better. And Hobart's Run is a great start. The question is, how do we build on that? How do we make that work? And there are a lot of communities where this kind of thing has actually worked. I mean, the models are there. University of Pennsylvania has done quite a good job in West Philadelphia. Drexel is now doing a good job. Franklin and Marshall has done a great job working with Lancaster General Hospital in Lancaster. Common thread there is John Fry, who's now president of Drexel University. But they've shown that working with eds and meds, big employers, big generators of intellectual capital, can make some really interesting things happen in places that you wouldn't expect. So we need to keep working in the trenches on what David Russ calls the inside game, things like Hobart's Run. But second, I hope you go beyond just the inside strategies. As the governor and with the senator here, there are things that we need to look beyond the borough of Pottstown. Pottstown is doing some really impressive things, and I think the Hill and the connection with Hill, the partnership, is going to achieve some great things. But there are limits to what you can achieve. Sat next to the mayor of Reading, we talked about some of these things. We need to change the outside game. You need a good outside game strategy. So that I'm hoping that the people in this room who are real opinion makers really have influence in places like Washington, D.C., in Norristown, the county seat of Montgomery County, and in Harrisburg, can get all of us to change some of the things in the environment that make things really tough on places like Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Let's start, with the legacy costs that boroughs like Pottstown have. The municipal pension issue is a really big problem. It's a big problem for Reading. It's a big problem for York, Pennsylvania, and Harrisburg, and other places. It's a big problem for Pottstown. We can do all the things we want to try to generate activity and go above and beyond anything that's ever been done before in the inside game and get people to want to come here and work here. But we're going to have trouble if we don't get to the problems that cause taxes to be too high in municipalities because they're trying to pay down these legacy costs that current mayors had nothing to do with. We're pushing water uphill if we don't do something about the high school taxes, because the property tax, which goes to fund public education in most communities around Pennsylvania, is really an unfair tax. It hits the poorest places the worst, creates the highest tax rates, and produces the least amount of money. Now, I know you can't throw money at any problem and get to a good place, but those disparities really do have an impact on education across the Commonwealth, and it has an impact on Pottstown. Let's work on an outside strategy that actually gets us, say in Harrisburg or in Washington, wherever it's appropriate, to look at those things and to help the boroughs change those things. You have a role to play in that, in helping us, Senator Mensch and I and our colleagues, to figure out how we can help places like Pottstown deal with these issues they had nothing to do with. It's not their fault that we have created these problems. We need to help them solve them. Inside, the things like Hobart's Run actually makes a big difference. Again, we need to work on things like invest in Pottstown, in this area. That's what Franklin Marshall has done. That's what Penn has done. And that's what Drexel is doing right now. Direct investment in the communities, in the neighborhoods, to make them safe, to make them attractive, to make them the kinds of places that serve as really nice environments for this heretofore island that exists at Hill. We need to relax the barriers that have at least existed when I was at Hill, to make sure that there are those barriers are not as rigid as they once were between the neighborhoods and for Hill. We can establish better institutional partnerships with the borough, with the public schools that are in the borough, with the Chamber of Commerce, it's here tonight, with the Montgomery County Economic Development Administration. The Hill can invest its own resources in targeted entrepreneurial activities, just like it's doing in the Hobart's Run example. But again, that outside game is important. You can't do one without the other. There are so many things that we're asked to do in Harrisburg that really are pushing water uphill. And what we haven't done is actually address the root cause issues that could make some of these things work even better. The fact that Hill and Pottstown can work together, want to work together, those are two great, that's a partnership that could do some really great things. And I would love to see this partnership succeed. The point is that the Hill School and Pottstown need each other. And this, I hope, this conference tomorrow, you all figure out ways that you can help do good things right here in Pottstown and in the places that create policies that affect what goes on in places like Pottstown and at the Hill School. But the forging of that relationship can clearly work to the benefit of both the school and the borough. This is the right time for the Hill School community and the Pottstown community to do this. The point is, if they don't, neither one is going to have a really bright future. Neither one is going to be able to do what they could do if they work together. The Hill cannot hope to be as successful as it could be as a random and isolated island in a community that could otherwise be enriched and energized by its engagement with Pottstown. If Hill doesn't engage and it continues to believe it can endure as an island, then in Dunn's words, the bell will toll for the Hill School. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I hope you succeed, because this is a great model throughout Pennsylvania, bringing educational institutions and the boroughs and cities that surround them together to the benefit of the people who are in both. This is a great thing for all of us in Pennsylvania. I wish you all the luck in the world. Thank you very much.